Hello, Alec. Well, the legislative session is over, but the news doesn't stop. This week, you're going to be writing about the Community Family Residence Program. Let me just explain to viewers a little bit quickly what that is, and then what's happening with it.
So this program is designed to provide funding for families who have sick children and might need to travel, say, to Vancouver if they live in the interior or north of the province, if they're getting cancer care or something else. This funding through this program allows for them to pay for a hotel room, to pay for a place to stay while their kid is undergoing treatment. But on last week, it was revealed that the government has restricted the program. So now only families making up to $85,000 annually will be eligible. Additionally, the program used to fund stays of up to 30 nights per visit. So, say per visit to Vancouver, you would get up to 30 nights of coverage. Now it's going to be 15 nights a year. And so it's been reduced greatly. There's a number of families who have taken to social media, who are talking about how this might impact them, negatively impact them and their children, especially, those vulnerable families who might not have a lot of money to pay for hotel rooms or to pay for other necessities such as food while their kids are undergoing medical care. And so that was something that was done under the radar by the province, but now it's being discovered by the opposition. The Conservatives are pressing the government on it. Families are coming forward. So it's one of those things that, the government tried to do quietly as part of, I imagine, their efforts to reduce costs, especially within the healthcare system. But it might come back to blow up in their faces at the end of the day.
85,000 annual threshold. That's the threshold for qualification. That seems rather low when you consider that in many cases these folks have to take a leave of absence from work to care for their children as well. So I could see the cost pressures, let alone if they're coming to Vancouver and having to rent a hotel room. We know what's happening with the cost of hotels in Vancouver, particularly at this time of year. So has the minister said anything about this?
The minister has given at least one interview on the topic and said, look, we needed to find cost savings somewhere, was basically the gist of what she said. Quoting her, she said, in the physical environment we're in right now, the health ministry, like all other ministries, has been given a mandate to review programs. And so we were not able to expand the funding that we provide. They're not expanding the funding, they're reducing the funding. So it's not really a great answer to the question of why these families will be left without coverage outside of maybe 15 nights a year if they, come under the income threshold. And so it's one of those things that I imagine she will be answering many more questions on this in the coming days and weeks.
Including from you, I would think. Yes.
Hopefully, yes. If they grant me an interview today, yes.
Okay. Well, and I mean, to put this into context, what is the total cost to taxpayers of this program? Do we know?
I do not know that off the top of my head at this point.
No, I know you're still working on the story, but that would be interesting to find out how many millions of dollars a year this costs us relative to the multi-billion-dollar healthcare budget. Okay. Well, the premier is not in the legislature, but he is off on a trade mission. Where has he been?
He just wrapped up a trip to Malaysia to speak to Petronas. I believe he is in South Korea now. He visited Japan. So he's been in Southeast Asia, talking to investors, talking to companies, talking to government officials. The press gallery is going to be getting another update today. I believe he flies back tomorrow to British Columbia. So it's a 10-day trade mission that is now wrapping up. And I'm interested to hear what he thinks about the results of that trip. Although these sorts of trade missions, we won't have an indication of how successful it was until maybe months down the road, because, deals take time and investments take time, and it's not necessarily something that's going to reap immediate benefits.
Well, Premier Eby and his energy minister, Adrian Dix, have really been leaning into LNG and the future of LNG. So interesting that he's meeting with Petronas, who is obviously a big player.
Yes, they hold a 25% stake in LNG Canada, And I remember the NDP used to criticize the BC Liberals over their, building out of LNG, and now they're taking advantage of it and hoping to build it out further. Although it's not necessarily something that you'll see the NDP pushing, massively publicizing in terms of the degree to which they're going forward with LNG, because they also want to keep those environmental credentials at the same time. But it is something that they're pushing, especially as part of the large-scale infrastructure projects that Prime Minister Mark Carney is pushing forward. The NDP is hesitant about having a new pipeline, an oil and gas pipeline from Alberta to the BC's north coast, but they are all in on LNG. They've recently moved forward the environmental assessment for the Prince Rupert gas transmission line for an LNG export terminal up on the north coast, and so it'll be interesting to see how much more the NDP pushes forward with LNG in the coming years.
So the Premier's been busy on a trade mission. The Legislature's not sitting. So what are all the government MLAs and opposition MLAs doing this summer?
They're going around the summer barbecue circuit, which is kind of an inside joke inside the Legislature here, but it's very, very true. MLAs will go back to their communities. They'll hit all of these kind of fairs and barbecues and hold a bunch of fundraisers as well to talk to constituents, raise money, kind of make sure they're keeping up with their community, but also, raising funds for the party. And so that's mostly what they'll be doing this summer. Ministers, on the other hand, they will have some events. We've seen Infrastructure Minister Bowen Ma, following the passages of Bills 14 and 15, doing a couple school announcements about new schools, because that now falls under her ministry. We've seen Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon up in Kelowna talking about new housing spaces for people experiencing homelessness. So ministers will have, Agriculture Minister Lana Popham was on the trip with Premier David Eby, and Jobs Minister Diana Gibson is heading off to Europe this week. And so there are things that ministers are doing outside of just the barbecue circuit, but for most members of the Legislature, they might travel around the province, but a lot of it will be staying in their communities and talking to constituents.
It'll be a chance for those constituents to give them some feedback, a little bit of a report card on how they think they're doing before they head back. When does the Legislature return?
The Legislature will return in October. I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but it won't return for the rest of the summer or September. We will return back in October.
All right. Thanks, Alec. We'll catch up again next week.
Thank you, Harold.